What's up, y'all? It's one of my favorite times of the year. Yes, it's officially fall theater season, and here's the show you gotta check out. Steppenwolf presents Noises Off by Michael Frayn and directed by Tony Award-winning ensemble member Anna D. Shapiro. It's a co-production with the Geffen Playhouse, and this meta play within a play will have you LOLing, LMAOing, LMFAOing, and all night long. Extended by demand through November 3rd, Noises Off is on stage now. Buy tickets starting at just $20 at steppenwolf.org. Today on CityCast Chicago. Chicago is home to a handful of iconic sandwiches, but growing up, there was only one sandwich that truly had my heart, and it didn't matter how long I had to wait. I mean, 45 minutes to an hour, I'ma wait. Yes, I'm talking about the Chicago sweet steak. While you can get it at a few places across the city, my favorite comes from Morgan Park's home of the hoagie, which unfortunately has been closed for the last month. Well, my friends, tomorrow they back open. Earlier this year, I took producer Michelle Navarro to brave the long line for the Southside's most coveted sandwich. It's Wednesday, October 2nd. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago is talking about. Long ass list in there, Brody.
How long ago did you call?
Should I call it like what is it? Probably 1:45. 1:45. She said about 45 minutes. It's probably gonna be longer. That Friday afternoon, it's packed in there. Yeah, we out here at home of the hoagie off 111 in Troop. Friday afternoon trying to get the sweet steak, but we already knew we was gonna have to wait. Home of the hoagie been here since 1969. As long as I've known my entire life, the wait is 30, 45 minutes an hour. Even if you call in, it's about at least 10 people behind that window making steaks, sandwiches, and hoagies, and kind of moving people through. Cash only, ATM don't work. The only place to sit in there is to sit and wait. You got people off on the side. Before I came, my homie said it's the kind of place that the food is good enough that I'd come 4 times a month, but the wait is so long I only come once a year.
So you said you've been coming here since you could remember. What's your earliest memories of coming here?
Probably sitting in the car, 6, 7 years old. My mom running in and coming back out to sit for a while, then going back in to kind of check on it. And so, yeah, as long as I can remember these flavors. Before I knew what an Italian beef was, I knew what a sweet steak was. And the order is pretty simple. I called on the phone, let me get 1 steak extra sweet, then 1 steak sweet and hot, 2 fries with sauce on everything. They come with cheese. And so, yeah, pretty simple. You come in, we put our name on the list, record it a little bit. Now we're going to go stand in and wait with everybody else.
Damn, that looks good.
Luckily, my mom lives about 10 minutes north of home of the hoagie in Calumet Heights. And so we hopped in a car and slid over to my mom's house. Michelle got a sweet steak, hot and sweet peppers. I got a sweet steak with extra sweet peppers. I mean, it's beautiful to look at. You got your steamed Italian roll. You got 2 fat slices of tomato, like a sweet green relish, as much chopped steak as you possibly can handle. And Home of the Hoagie, as I was explaining earlier, has been around since about 1969. The original tourist flavors, which a lot of people say really brought the sweet steak to Chicago, also started in the 1960s. So Home of the Hoagie is one of the original places you can get this sandwich. Michelle, have you ever had a sweet steak, or is this your first time laying your eyes on it?
Yeah, this is my first time. I've heard about it before, but I've never had it. So I'm really excited to try it. It's funny that you mentioned that this is the only thing you've ordered, because while we were waiting in there, we were right by the ordering window, and I feel like I just constantly heard the same order, which was the steak sandwich, which is also the first thing on the menu. Yep. So
the meal on the bun.
Mm-hmm.
Even our Uber driver on our way to my mom's house is just like, she said she been wanting to get it for 2 weeks, but she know it's an investment of time. But it's one of those things that when you eat it resets the clock for you. It's sort of, why you went there, why you waited. And you could tell there were people of all ages in there, from little kids all the way up to folks in their 60s and their 70s, waiting like they had just come from church for their sandwich, because they've known for, again, as long as I've been alive, as long as many of the people ain't never been alive, that they're going to do you right. They're going to make you wait, but they're going to do you right.
So Jacoby, tell me, what makes the sweet steak sandwich a meal on the bun?
I mean, because you got a little bit of everything. One, in Chicago, we obsessed with a fat ass sandwich. Whether it's the gym shoe, whether it's the big baby, whether it's the Italian beef, the sweet steak, and a host of other sandwiches, the gyro cheeseburger, right? The Euro, the hero, however people pronounce it, right? Chicago is in love with a sandwich in this because it has your tomato, your cheese, your grilled onions. Again, look at this, bro. This is just like spoons and spoons of steak all on this warm roll. It's a nap wrapped in aluminum foil.
That looks so fire. Okay, so I'm looking at mine.
You can't see the difference.
I see that giardiniera.
Giardiniera.
Them tomatoes on top. It looks super saucy. All right, I'm going for it. Wow. Be careful now.
Overload. I'm spilling everywhere. It's one of those meals that even if you tried to cut it up to make it a little bit easier, you're just going to leave yourself a bigger mess. Yep. So you might as well just grab it full scale and just go in. Luckily, the roll has very good integrity. Because you could tell, sopping in sauce, sopping in peppers, you got that cheese. Eventually, this thing is going to get soggy. But I don't think I've had one where the bread is just like breaking underneath me.
Yeah. It's like the perfect amount of moist, and it's like soaked in the sauce. Yeah. And it's like you want it to be soaked in the sauce. This is so good. Like, I'm tasting, of course, the steak is like the star with that sauce, which is like the perfect amount of sweet. And because I got the hot peppers and the sweet peppers on it, I taste the difference in the kick of spice in there. And I love American cheese.
Oh, me too.
So
my stomach don't always read.
Real, I didn't grow up eating a lot of American cheese, but like Jibaritos have American cheese. Raymond's Tacos be adding American cheese to their tacos, and I love that. So having that American cheese in here too is just so good.
Oh, that's so killer. Maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment, but of all of the Chicago classics that we have tasted, the sweet steak is amongst the most consistent in my life. The flavor today is very similar, if not identical, for me at least, to the flavor that I remember in my childhood. The relish is the same. The sweet peppers are the same. The way they cook the steak, the sauce, tastes very similar. And in a way, it's like that Chicago hot dog in the sense of like those ingredients are just sort of the same. It typically tastes the same wherever you go. But when you start thinking about like a Harold's or a Giordano's, Illuminati's, even the Italian beefs, like the Italian beef tastes different places you go.
100%.
Right?
The meat is going to be different. The gravy is going to be different. The bread, the amount they soak it in, if you like it dipped or half dipped or however, yeah, it's going to be totally different.
For this to be essentially the same restaurant, pretty much in the same family for decades, and for this recipe to still feel very true, at least over my 30 years, is been pretty remarkable to me.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when it's like a smaller, like you said, like family owned kind of spot. Things happen. We talked about how, the original spot burned down, unfortunately, and they had to open up a spot real close to there.
The original tourist that made the sweet steak, they had a location that just a few years ago, someone ran a car through it, and it hasn't even recovered. And I know that has some things to do with how things were going, inside the business as well. And so it's, especially when we're talking about a classic such as the sweet steak in a place like Homotogi, where they are not franchised, they are not in a bunch of places. Even with the original location burning down, it is one spot cranking out a classic for an entire city. And maybe it's the South Side, right? Maybe it's our sort of special sandwich, but you could tell today people are coming from all over the city making time to get one of these things. And so, shout out to tourists, but for one, like home of the hoagie, and there are other places that I think, you know, there's a Haley's Hoagies, there's a hoagie spot off 83rd and Hostel you can get it, but you know, at this point, home of the hoagie is the sort of number one champ right now.
Jacoby, what does this sandwich mean to you and your community? You know, you mentioned that you grew up around, so it was always kind of like a present business in your life, a present food staple. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean to you?
For me, I think really in just ways that I'm describing the sandwich, it sort of reminds me of my family. It reminds me of warmth. It was one of those things, because you had to invest time in it in my household. It was never a thing where only one person got a sweet steak, right? It was never a thing where my brother just showed up and he had a sweet steak, or my mom just showed up. My mom ever went, she considered everybody. If I go, I'm thinking about, you know, I'm trying to bring somebody with me. I'm trying to pick up some people. I'm calling people. You know, I asked before I came, my friend, you want me to save some fries? You want me to bring you a hoagie out? Because I know many of us we don't have time to go spend 2 hours. And the time you do have, we were there in the middle of a Friday at 2:00, and you saw how packed it was.
Yep.
And so it's always represented community, but also it really is a symbol of get out our way and give us opportunity and we will make magic. There really is no reason other than disinvestment that you step outside of home of the hoagie. And yes, there's a coffee shop, it seems, down the street, and there are churches and hustle man standing outside with selling tracksuits, and everybody's sizes in Kelowna, everybody's sizes. and there was a barbershop up the street, but you see that each of those businesses really are in many ways sort of fighting to be there, because the built environment around them aren't built in the same ways to have people sort of walking up and down the corridor and the strip. It is this gym that both sort of reminds us what is possible, but it also reminds us when you go over there, like you can't shake how frustrated you are that Morgan Park and Rosen and Pullman haven't been given more. For me, the fact that a sweet steak in one restaurant on 111th Street got equal amount of clout as a beef sandwich on Taylor Street, you know, that is next to so much industrial and warehouse and has so much foot traffic, I think speaks highly to what the South Side, the far South Side, has always been capable of. Because
of that extra weight and that kind of investment you got to make. Mm-hmm. When is it time to get a sweet steak? When do you tell yourself, like, all right, it's time to go. We need one. That's a good question. Because it used to be if I had the money and if I was close enough. And then when I got back and I was sort of driving all over the city, I found myself on I-57 a lot. And so if I could make time to get off on 111th, I just would. And I would just pull up at the end of a week, grab a sweet steak, grab it, put it in the car, and try and eat it on my way home. Like nibble at the fries, nibble at the steak a little bit on the way home. But I do remember specifically when I got back home from grad school, within like a few days, I made my way all the way to 111th. And at the time, I was living nowhere close to it. But it was one of those things that when you went away to school and you talked about the story of growing up in Chicago, that was one of the things. It was like playing at the park, riding my bike up Ashland, you know, getting a sweet steak, like sweet steak similar to like in some ways like deep dish and Chinese food. Then was like the holiday foods, and then was like the it's been a good week and we not cooking foods in my household. Like it's why I've always like, it's a tangent, but it's why I've always continued to have love for like deep dish. People like, Chicago don't eat that. I'm like, in my household, it was like my mom cooked all the time. Like, you know, even if it was just some cube steak or some sloppy joe or some spaghetti, she cooked all the time. Everything else was, do you have that money? And so hey, you got McDonald's money, you got Chinese food money, you got sweet steak money. So it was one of those iconic few things that if there was a good week or we was going to celebrate or a movie night or summer break or spring break, it was one of the foods that we was grabbing. To learn more about how this iconic sandwich came to Chicago, go back and listen to our episode with Monica Eng and David Hammond, the authors of Made in Chicago, Stories Behind 30 Great Hometown Bites, and check the link in our show notes for the episode link.
One more thing before we get out of here. Bookmark our website, chicago.citycast.fm. And while you're there, subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago. Look at some of our neighborhood and walking guides. And you can find our email, our phone number, our socials, any place that you need to reach out and give us your episode ideas. Leave us some commentary on the podcast, some things you think we could do better, some things you love. Whatever you want to tell us, reach out to us. And hey, you may end up hearing yourself on the podcast one of these days. Now, I can't let you go without some good news. Star Farm Fresh Market and Kitchen in Back of the Yards has a great month of events planned, including a cooking demo this morning from 10 to 1. They got a family movie night on Friday from 4 to 7. And next Friday, they have their family fun workshop. To learn more, head over to our show notes. As always, I appreciate y'all for listening and reading. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. I'm going to talk to you then. Peace. That thinly cut ribeye, that smooth tomato, that great American cheese, that pickled lily and sweet pepper. The perfect nasty sandwich.